Hey, we've got our guest on the phone with us, Tracey Wilen, and you were just reading over a little bit of information there. Why don't you kind of give me that? And Tracey, good morning. First of all, welcome to Good Morning Ozarks.
Oh, good morning. Thank you for having me.
It is a sincere pleasure, and we're getting ready just to kind of visit together. Will that be all right here at the round table?
Oh, that would be great. Thank
Awesome.
you.
But John, you were reading something
Tracey,
there.
I was reading a little bit about your bio. Really, I'd rather hear it from you. Tell us what's your background? Where'd you come from?
Oh, sure. So I'm actually based in the Silicon Valley, so I have a high-tech background of working at Apple, Hewlett-Packard, Cisco Systems, and I was also a visiting scholar at Stanford University, and I was researching how technology is really changing society and everything about it, whether it's work, skills, education, careers, and so I pretty much speak about my research today and travel and very kindly get invited to be on different radio shows.
Well,
But this time of year, I always talk about graduation, resumes, students, career job focus.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you with us here on Good Morning Ozarks, and we want to find out. You have written 11 books, and we've got one now on the table here to talk about, which we will do. Tracey will have plenty of time to talk about that. But in asking about your beginning, we want to go back before Apple and HP and all of that, and where you were born and grew up, and what some of your did you go to college? When did you get interested in technology? So take me back that far if you don't mind, because we always like to get to know the person.
Oh, sure. So I'm originally from New York City, and pretty much grew up there. Went to school and high school, and then eventually went to college and a liberal arts degree, and then I worked in actually the fashion industry for a while, and then moved out to California, and that's when I I personally had to switch because they didn't really have fashion in Silicon Valley. It was all about technology, so I had to make a personal shift, learn technology, and actually go back to school at night because advanced degrees were very important. Business and technology degrees are very important.
Did you end up with family in New York or California, or what's
No,
that?
I have. I'm married, married, no kids, and living in Silicon Valley. And then I
Awesome.
also spent a lot of time in Santa Monica, which is Silicon Beach.
Oh man, what a great place to be at the end of I-10, right there. They have the pier there, the Santa Monica Pier. I happen to have grown up in the San Fernando Valley, so not far from there, and miss the weather and the beach.
Oh, yes, yes. And actually, I'm on business this month in New York, and it has been a very cold month. So I'm missing it right now too.
You'll be ready. You'll be ready to get home. Years ago, about 34 years ago, Tracey, I lost my sight in '82, and then had occasion to work with a computer software company that developed software screen readers for the blind. And in that day, as you know, the PC was just kind of making its way to our homes, and Apple was the equipment that the software was developed on. And I had an occasion to be at the Apple headquarters in Cupertino, California, and I assume that's where you spent time with Apple, right?
Yes, yes, and they're reinventing that whole campus now. It's enormous, and it's just completely different than those days. Let me tell you, Apple was much smaller when I was there, and probably you visited, and now it's just a metropolis. It's enormous, and it's all over the world.
Well, some people might not remember this, but you might. I was there right after the Apple IIe was introduced.
That, I actually know the building you were in.
There you go.
That's so funny. That's a long time ago. It
That
certainly
was-
has evolved.
That was a long time ago, but I said all that to say, boy, how, for me, Apple has been involved from the get-go for those, because I'm blind, and they have done a wonderful job, John. As you know, my iPhone makes it available for me to do a lot of things, and that kind of brings me to technology. And Tracey, your 10 other books, were they about technology, or what kind of things did you write?
No, actually, a lot of my early research was on women. And actually international, because I was traveling for Apple actually at age 20, 21. I was commuting to Asia, and I was fascinated with how challenging it was for women doing business overseas. And so as part of my night school as an MBA student, I interviewed women and how they created success in Japan, and then that turned into a book. And it went so well that women kept writing to me and saying, are you traveling anywhere else in the world? Because it's really good advice and tips that you're giving from other women. And so then I just continued on that thread. So the first 7 books are really about women doing business in various parts of the world. The connection with technology is that, most of my business was for technology firms, but also just because of flight. You might remember that, getting to Japan, maybe you could get 1 flight a week, and today now you can fly like 5 or 6 times a day. I mean,
Wow.
It's just incredible. So it impacts all of us. So that's really the early books, and then I shifted into education, and then I shifted into careers and skills and jobs.
Well, I think your emphasis at this time of the year certainly is right on target because we got graduations from high school, colleges, and what have you. And this new book focuses on some things that the young people graduating, especially those getting ready to go into the workplace, need, right? How did this book come about?
So Employed for Life was really a 360-degree look at careers today from the viewpoints of hiring managers, HR personnel and executives, recruiters, and actually employees who have gotten jobs during challenging times. And I really try to aggregate their tips and pointers on, here we are in a digital world. It's a completely different landscape for job hunting today. What are some things that we can advise people to do or maybe not do while they're trying to pursue a job as an adult or as a student?
Well, let's kind of hit some of the highlights, John. This is an area, when you and I were looking for jobs, especially in the beginning, you'd go in and they'd give you an application. You'd sit over in the corner and fill it out and hand it in and that kind of thing. But things have really changed, haven't they, Tracey?
Yes. In fact, the resume is a very critical part of the job process. I mean, number one, I would say networking is absolutely the best way to get a job. 65 to 75% of jobs are still through networking because people hire people. But the resume is a tool that everybody should know how to use and write and develop because the resume really helps you get an interview. And I think that's one of the mistakes, that people actually think that they're going to show someone a resume and they're going to go, you're hired, you get the job. They're not. The resume is the tool that you use today when someone doesn't know you, right, of how am I going to summarize on one page the compelling facts and figures about me and, the achievements I've done to make you want to bring me in for an interview.
Now, you say the resume doesn't necessarily get you the job. We have one exception I got to tell you about. Here in the Ozarks, we have an institution here called College of the Ozarks. You can look it up online. They call it Hard Work U. And, John, if somebody comes in with a resume that says their education included College of the Ozarks, bam, you hire them, then figure out what they can do. But normally, you're certainly right. Tell me about some mistakes people make. And you mentioned, I think I heard
5
you say
mistakes, yeah.
I think I heard you say 1 page. I remember my first resume, John, it was about 3 pages. I mean, what are some of the mistakes people make, and what are some of the things we should do?
Well, I think one of the big mistakes is people just spam. They just send one generic resume to every job on the planet. And the reality is they're not really looking at the job. They're not looking at what the employer wants. So they're thinking about themselves, and it feels good to spray and pray around, right? Lots of resumes. And then they wonder why they don't hear back. Rather, I would encourage people to really read the job description, make an assessment. Do you put your eye all the way down at the bottom, make an assessment. Do you meet 80% of the criteria? If not, do not even apply for it. You do not have to apply for jobs to have your resume go in the garbage. And I think that's important because people don't realize I would rather you send out 3 resumes to get a job than 100 and have it completely fall into a garbage can somewhere.
So what I hear you saying on that is just read the job description and make sure and tune your resume to that specific description.
And only if you meet that description, the qualifications of the description.
Right.
So there's always going to be that list of, do you have this, 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 and this? And if you say no, 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 yes, it's probably not a good fit because there's someone else who's going to go, yes, 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 yes. And they're probably going to be much more qualified than you, and they're going to get the job. So, only apply for the things that you really are in the running for because, you're wasting your time. And that time could be used to really find high-quality job openings that are matched. Just ask yourself, who would hire me today?
Mm-hmm.
With today's technology, are most jobs now, I'm asking a question I probably know the answer to, but are most jobs taking online applications? And if so, do you then attach a resume to that online application online, or are we still dealing in paper?
No, the online. And let me give you two pieces of software that people should know about. One is called an applicant tracking system. So when you send in your resume online, it may not go directly to a person. It might actually go into an applicant tracking software system, which means that you'll be in the employer's database. So that's why if you spam, you're going to be in there 100 times. The employer's going to delete you, right? Because they're saying, that's not a serious person.
Sure.
The second thing is something called parsing. So when recruiters talk to you about that 20 or 30-minute scan, they're looking for key elements to match their job opening. And that's what software can do today. You can direct the software to parse the resume and look for those key things. And it's usually on the first page. They're looking for the title. They're looking for the industry. They're looking for the functional area, which is like marketing or sales. They're probably looking for the education school. So your point is very well taken. Some employers want graduates from certain schools. And they also are looking for some experience and skills that relate. And software can do that today. So you want to make sure that that first page pulls all that information into the software so at least you can get to the next level.
Now, those two pieces of software that you mentioned, are those pieces of software that the employer is going to be using?
Employers will have it, also recruiters. And it might vary, right? So we don't know exactly what each employer is going to have, but there's a good chance if they're getting thousands of resumes that they're definitely using that. So you may go through a lot of this systematized parsing before you even get to a person, and then the person may have a boiled down 1,000 resumes or 500 resumes, and then they're still going to give it that 20 or 30-second scan. So it's very important you understand what they're looking for and how the process works.
I know somebody that spent several years as a headhunter. Is that business still in operation? Do people still use that to find employees?
Oh, yeah, and I think what a lot of people don't understand about a headhunter or a recruiter is they're actually working for the firm. They're not working for the employee. So a firm will come to a recruiter or headhunter and say, I'm having a very hard time finding this unique type of title or skill set, right? And they'll pay a recruiter to do that. So if a company has their own HR department and own recruiters, they're probably not going to go out and hire one. But if they have a really tough opening, they will go out and pay someone to help them find that person. And that recruiter or headhunter will go scan the marketplace and look for someone who's probably working in the exact job that that employer wants and try to persuade them to take a look at the new job.
Now, since John and I are sitting here at the round table, and John, our job might be in jeopardy, although this is a volunteer position, what are the 5 things you cover in your book?
So what I try to cover is, what's happening in the whole world of recruiting, and how does that process work? What are companies doing today, right? And what are HR executives looking for in leadership and employees today? Because that's really changed. And then what are employees doing in a tough job market to really get jobs? And what are some of their strategies? Some of it is applying for jobs very precisely. Some of it is really joining professional associations that have targeted openings and people to build their network. Some of them are actually using social media, and I think social media is very effective in helping people build their brand. So a lot of us use social media for friends and family, but you can also use it as a branding tool. So, for example, you're a marketing person. Well, what a better way to showcase your marketing skills by developing a blog or tweeting about your volunteer work in marketing, right? Because now you're adding in other pieces to the picture that may not be on that resume and help expanding your brand in other distribution channels such as social media.
What are some of the big mistakes that, say, college graduates would do that you've seen repeated a lot of times, regardless of things like your book out there to tell them not to? What are the biggest no-nos that we can do?
Well, number one is, applying for jobs that they're just not qualified for.
Right.
I just met a young woman, graduated from college. She was working as a bartender, and she realized that she wanted to be in sales. And I told her, you can really qualify bartending as hospitality operations or quoted sales, really, because you're getting a job in tips. But then she went for a senior manager position in a pharmaceutical sales company that she had no business applying for.
Probably not. It's like
right,
me.
And I think students sort of don't understand that there's tens of thousands of people who are very qualified for that job also applying for it. So I think you have to be realistic. So I encourage students, go to the companies, go to the career section, look for the jobs that the employer is saying. If you're a university graduate, a college graduate, here's where you look, here's what we offer. And a lot of them have phenomenal sort of, leadership rotation programs. So I think you got to be very realistic about the jobs you apply for. And then the second one is just, lying. A lot of students just lie and, over-fabricate facts and figures that are just not true, thinking that people aren't going to find out. And the world is so transparent today. If you didn't graduate from college, don't put that down. You could say you're attending the college and your projected graduation date. If you have a great GPA, put it on your resume. If you don't have a great GPA but a good GPA in your major, put that down. If you don't have a good GPA, don't lie about it. Just leave it off and highlight something else. I think that, a lot of students don't realize that people will do background checks. They'll do financial checks. If you're, pursuing finance, they'll do drug tests. And if you say that you code, they're going to give you a coding test before you even meet someone. I think you have to be very realistic about being, not lying and being, truthful in what you're pursuing.
Do you find that college is as important today as we used to tell our kids, boy, you got to get a degree or you're not going to, you're going to be flipping hamburgers all the time? Not that there's anything wrong with that. But is college as important today to get that degree, or how does experience stack up?
Yeah, it does depend. So let's say, for example, you're an incredible computer programmer. That's what you're going to get hired for, whether you went to college or completed a degree or not. If you can really show that you're doing innovative coding, and a lot of the high-tech firms will prioritize that experience or what you're doing. Today, a lot of employers really like to see people who are starting things, leading things. So let's say you created a startup business. I met a kid, and he's 13, 14 years old, loves to golf, created a whole business around collecting old golf clubs and donating it to underprivileged children who want to learn golf. That's pretty powerful stuff for an employer, because that's a kid who takes initiative and leadership, and that has value. That will probably help him get into a college that maybe will direct him into a job. But no, there's a lot of demand in skilled work. Blue-collar certifications can be another path, or what I call building block careers. Healthcare is a building block career where you may go in with a little bit of experience. You find that you like healthcare, you get a certification, you continue working, you decide you like an aspect of healthcare, you might want to get an associate's degree in it and then build up to 4-year, and depending on what's necessary or not. So I think there's a lot of more options today than in the past.
You mentioned earlier about making sure that, if I'm a marketing person, or that my Facebook page looks good. How important is it that Facebook be something to think about, even if it's your personal Facebook page, John, and you put things on there about the trips you take or whatever? How important is your Facebook page, maybe if we don't even intend it to be seen by a prospective employer?
Everything is transparent today, so every employer or hiring manager will Google you. so you'll have to, Google yourself, and I would do it on a regular basis to see what's popping up. Is it your LinkedIn profile, or is it, the parties that you're going to on Facebook? And you can have a separate Facebook page for your friends and family and a professional page. I think it's important that you utilize the social media in a positive way to help yourself, because we have seen students not get jobs because of employers going through the motions of checking them out in advance. Because nobody wants to have that kind of employee with that kind of negative branding working for their firm.
Sure.
I've heard that specifically, that there's people today, they'll get a resume, and before they ever even call the person, they'll check out their Facebook profile to figure out, okay, here's what they say on their Facebook, but here's who they really, or here's what they say on their resume, but here's who they really are on Facebook, and they don't even give them a call back.
Yep, and I agree. And here's what I recommend: people match it. Make sure your LinkedIn profile looks like your Facebook profile, looks like your Twitter profile, and then have, if you want to do your social, get Snapchat or, do something completely, that you can erase the photos or partition the photos, but make sure your profiles do match, and have a strong brand for yourself.
Yeah.
Now, where is this book available at?
So my website is TraceyWilen.com, TraceyWilen.com. At Tracey Wilen, of course, at Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and then everything is also available on Amazon.
Very good. Wow. Well, John, I think we got it figured out now.
Yeah, I'm telling you,
we can apply.
Tracey has it figured out. That's
She's
for
got
sure.
It going on.
She would be the lady to do some research and find out through her. Tracey, thank you for really some of the innovative things that you've done. I really loved hearing about your work with women specifically. That's powerful.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to wrap up, John, by asking you, Tracey, what's the situation for women? And I know you did a lot of international work, but let's talk about women primarily, but also men. Are we in an international job market? And do we find that a lot of the people that grew up here, go to college here, get international jobs? What's that situation, and especially how are the women doing in that?
Well, I would encourage any individual to seek out international opportunities. It worked incredibly well for me. It was a time when a lot of people actually didn't want to go overseas, whether commuting or having an international assignment. It's very important today because we live in a global world, and that's something that can really add credibility to your resume. It's showing that you understand that the world is global and that you have the social intelligence is the skill that we call it, that you know how to work with people, not only in your own country, but in multiple countries. You understand how to work with a very diverse world because, let's face it, companies today are extraordinarily diverse. And so we need people who can really maneuver through, the complexities of working with other people.
And it makes it a small world, actually, with the internet and online things. And so unlike in years past when you drop a letter overseas and it get there a month later, we're instant communication now. So being away from family and friends is not as critical of a situation as it used to be, right?
Yes, and actually, thanks to technology, we can use it to actually Skype or have web meetings with these cross-functional global teams. And that's a great skill. If you're doing that right now in school, for example, that's a skill that's highly valued by employers. It's showing that you know how to use the technology, but you also know how to work in a virtual world with people all over the world. And if you're not getting that experience at work, then I would ask, can I join a cross-functional team so I can enhance my global skills? Can I start working on an international project? Can I work on a technology project so I can become more skilled and savvy about technology? So it's really that's one of the points about today. It's up to us to really take control and manage our own careers and say, here's what I need to do to fill in my own personal gaps, and how can I do that while I'm working or, in some other way.
Very good. The book, John?
The book's name is Employed for Life, 21st Century Career Trends, but it seems like Tracey's one that you should be following, on all of these, Twitter and some of these other ideas where you're just picking up some of the tips that you put out there, right, Tracey?
Yes, I try to give tips actually 4 times a year. In the new year, everybody wants to know what are the hot jobs and the predictions. I do spend the month of March talking about women, skills, experience, and careers. I always spend a little time in May and June around graduation and summer job hunting. And then in the fall, we never know. You know, this year's an election year, so we never know what the topic will be, but it's usually something around technology.
Okay.
Well, we sure want to thank you for allowing us through technology to speak with you. Are you out in California right now?
No, actually, I'm freezing in New York today.
Yeah, you had said that. I'm sorry, I missed that earlier. You did say it. Well, thank you very much for spending time with us, and we appreciate it very much. Sounds like this book would be fascinating. I'd encourage you to go to Tracey's website. We're going to put a link on our klfcradio.com website. And so, Tracey, if you wanted to go there later, about 12 or 1 o'clock, check it out, download it, put it on your blog or your website or whatever, you're welcome to. And we appreciate your time to get up with us and talk about this very important subject, especially around graduation.
That's right. Thanks a lot, Tracey.